The rain tapped softly against the classroom windows, a rhythmic backdrop to the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. Mr. Ellis sat at his desk, grading papers with a furrowed brow. His glasses slid down his nose, and he pushed them back absently, his mind wandering. He was in his early 30s, with a quiet demeanor that made him approachable, yet enigmatic. His students often joked that he was the kind of teacher who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, though none of them could guess why. In the back of the room, Liam sat hunched over his notebook, scribbling furiously. He was 17, with tousled dark hair and a nervous energy that made him fidget constantly. His grades were slipping, and he knew it. But lately, school felt like the least of his worries. His thoughts were consumed by something, or someone else. It had started innocently enough. Liam had always admired Mr. Ellis. He was different from the other teachers, kinder, more patient, and genuinely interested in his students' lives. But over time, that admiration had shifted into something deeper, something Liam couldn't quite name. It terrified him. One afternoon, after the final bell had rung, Liam lingered behind. He pretended to organize his backpack, his heart pounding in his chest. Mr. Ellis looked up from his desk, surprised. "Liam, everything okay?" Liam hesitated, his throat dry. I was wondering if you could help me with the essay. I'm not really getting it." Mr. Ellis smiled warmly. "Of course. Pull up a chair." For the next hour, they worked together, their heads bent over the desk. Liam tried to focus on the essay, but he couldn't help noticing the way Mr. Ellis's hands moved as he wrote, the way his voice softened when he explained a difficult concept. It was the closest they'd ever been, and Liam felt a strange mix of exhilaration and guilt. Weeks passed, and their after-school sessions became a routine. Liam found himself looking forward to them more than he cared to admit. He started noticing little things, the way Mr. Ellis's eyes crinkled when he laughed, the faint scent of his cologne, the way he always seemed to know exactly what to say to make Liam feel better. But with every passing day, the weight of his feelings grew heavier. He knew it was wrong. Mr. Ellis was his teacher, an adult, someone who could never feel the same way. And yet, Liam couldn't help the way his heart raced every time they were together. One evening, as they were packing up, Liam blurted out, "Do you ever feel like you're stuck? Like no matter what you do, you're always going to be alone?" Mr. Ellis paused, his expression softening. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think everyone feels that way sometimes." Liam looked down, his cheeks burning. I don't know how to make it stop." There was a long silence. Then Mr. Ellis said, "You're not alone, Liam. Even when it feels like you are." The tension between them grew unbearable. Liam's emotions were a tangled mess, and he didn't know how much longer he could keep them bottled up. One day, after a particularly difficult session, he couldn't hold back anymore. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice trembling. Mr. Ellis looked up, concerned. "Do what?" "This, United States. I can't keep pretending like everything's okay when it's not." Mr. Ellis's expression shifted, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Liam, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Liam said, his voice breaking. "I just needed you to know." The days that followed were agonizing. Liam avoided Mr. Ellis as much as he could, but the weight of his confession hung over him like a storm cloud. He felt exposed, vulnerable, and more alone than ever. One afternoon, Mr. Ellis stopped him in the hallway. "Liam, can we talk?" Liam nodded, his heart pounding. They walked to an empty classroom, the silence between them heavy. I've been thinking about what you said, Mr. Ellis began, his voice careful. And I want you to know that I care about you. A lot. But this isn't something we can pursue. It wouldn't be right. Liam's eyes filled with tears. I know. I didn't know what else to do. Mr. Ellis reached out, hesitating for a moment before placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. You're not alone, Liam. And you're going to be okay. I promise. Over time, the intensity of Liam's feelings began to fade. He threw himself into his schoolwork, his friendships, and his hobbies. He still thought about Mr. Ellis, but the ache in his chest grew less sharp with each passing day. Years later, when Liam was in college, he ran into Mr. Ellis at a coffee shop. They sat down together, catching up like old friends. Liam realized that what he'd felt back then wasn't just love. It was a longing for connection, for someone to see him and understand him. As they said goodbye, Mr. Ellis smiled. I'm proud of you, Liam. You've come a long way. Liam smiled back and said him thanks.